Welcome to the Christmassy Canal House's step-by-step tutorial videos. Thank you for joining me for this special project when we will transform the original canal houses into a Christmassy quilt. I'm Maria from MB Quilt Studio, one of the designers of the canal houses and the Little Amsterdam Quilt pattern. I'm so excited to work with you on this quilt. I hope you enjoy the Christmassy feeling while sewing the houses and roofs of this magical Little Amsterdam. This Christmassy canal house project aims to provide you with a quiet, calm space where you can enjoy sewing and have fun. Try to allow some time for yourself to get away from the festive season's rush to re-energize and get back fully recharged. If you are very busy or you need to be ready before Christmas, try to allocate some time for sewing. Have you tried to set your alarms for 30 minutes and immerse yourself in sewing or the creative process without worrying of the time? It always works for me. It's amazing how much you can accomplish in 30 minutes when you don't have to worry of the time. And if you do in a regular basis with this size of quilt, you can get very far. I know the holidays can be overwhelming, so what if you run out of time? Just change your mindset. Look at this quilt as next year's Christmas gift or decoration. Now you are way ahead and very well organized for next year. Just enjoy the sewing. I think it's very relaxing to work on a Christmas or winter quilt at any time during winter. I'm in the perfect mood while sewing in a warm house surrounded with the family, while outside is cold, snowy or frosty. My advice to you, just enjoy the sewing, enjoy the festive season and be present in the now. For a moment, let's go back to the past and let me tell you shortly about the history of the Canal House quilt. The Canal House quilt pattern was born from the original Little Amsterdam Quilt. It is the central panel of the original quilt with modified borders. We created the Canal House quilt pattern with those quilters in mind who want to have a keepsake of Amsterdam but with less wall space, or those who would like to make a quick house quilt. The original Little Amsterdam Quilt celebrated its 15th anniversary in 2022. To commemorate this special occasion, we published a new PDF downloadable edition of the Little Amsterdam Quilt pattern and at the same time created the Canal House pattern. Both designs were created by Norse Quilters, a partnership of Mary Beth Tofik, Leslie Carol Taylor and myself. We all lived in the Netherlands. In 2007, the original Little Amsterdam Quilt won the first prize in long-arm quilting category in the European Quilt Championship in the Netherlands. A few words about the Canal House quilt pattern. This quilt is for confident beginners, but advanced quilters will enjoy sewing this quilt as well. The size of the quilt is 38 inches by 38 inches. There are 7 bridge houses standing over the canal or the water and bridge. The quilt is finished with a foundation piece triangle border, or we can call it as a dogtooth border. The quilt is quick to make and with a little bit of challenge when it comes to the assembling the central block. Don't we all love a bit challenge to spice up our life? You can let your creativity go free when you work on this quilt and play with the embellishment of the quilt. I can imagine you are as excited as me or even more to start sewing the canal houses. However, first I have to draw your attention to some useful information. In order to make the quilt, you need to have the PDF downloadable Canal House pattern, which includes all the measurements, the real size templates, and the detailed information for sewing. While talking about the book, let's talk about printing. On each template page, you will find a 1-inch test square. You have to make sure that this test square is always 1 inch. If the test square is not 1 inch, you have to recalibrate your printer in order to get the correct size for your template. Usually, if you put your printer to 100%, that does the trick, but please check out again. And once your test square is 1 inch, you can be sure that your template is correct. If you don't have the pattern book yet, you can purchase your pattern book in the shop. I included a link to the pattern. We also have an online community of Little Amsterdam Quilters. It's a private Facebook group called the Little Amsterdam Quilt Along. You will meet members who are working either on the Little Amsterdam Quilt or the Canal House Quilt or the Christmassy Canal House Quilt. You are welcome to post your questions, the photos of your progress, exchange ideas, or get inspired by the work of other quilters. The group is moderated by me and by the 2 other designers of North Sea Quilters, Mary Beth and Leslie. If you are on Insta, please post your photos quoting #Canal House Quilt or #Little Amsterdam Quilts. We would love to see your photos. If you have any questions, you can ask your questions, comments in the comment section under this video or join the Facebook group and ask questions or post your photos there and talk to the other members. You can also email me directly. I'm happy to answer all your questions. I would like to talk about fabric choices. I'm going to go for the full Christmas look. To me, Christmas is about the colors of red, green, white, gold, silver, starry, shiny, snowy. I've disciplined myself and included a few solid fabrics to give some rest for the eye before moving on to the next shiny wall or window. You don't have to follow my fabric choice, my fabric selection. I encourage you to find your own fabric palette. Whatever fabrics you choose or colors you choose, it's important to keep a good contrast between walls and windows, between adjacent houses and the background. You don't want your houses disappear in the background, you want them to pop. It's very helpful if you have a design wall or a design board where you can place your fabric for the walls and windows and see how they work together before you make your final decision. What color palette or color scheme should you use? I think color choices or fabric choices are quite personal. You want to express yourself. I can give you some ideas, inspiration, but I would advise you to choose the colors and fabric you like best. So why not start with looking through your fabric stash and look for fabrics or colors what represent Christmas to you. Do you like a blue Christmas or a white and beige grey Christmas, or rather a Scandinavian red and white Christmas? Or you can start with a particular fabric as your starting point and build your town around that fabric. Like in my case, last year I came across this cater fabric and I immediately knew that this will be my water fabric for the Christmassy Canal House. You can also decide on a special scheme, like a starry night in the town or a children's town with fun fabrics, or as I mentioned before, a Scandinavian town. Whatever fabrics you choose, I can't wait to see your fabric pool. Please share your photos in the Facebook group or in the comment section. I would love to see. If you need any feedback, please come to the Facebook group. I'm happy to help, and I'm sure the other quilters will be happy to help to you as well. Let's talk about fabric requirements. In the pattern book on page 1 and 2, you will find the fabric requirements for the whole quilt by listing separately the walls, windows, sky, bridge, water, and the border, and also the embellishment enhancements, and not to mention the fusible web. As I said before, the key to the success of this quilt is to have a good contrast between walls and windows, between adjacent houses, the background and the houses. So when you select your fabrics, please keep this in mind and try to have a good selection of light, medium and dark fabrics. I'm going to go into details and have a look at each fabric section. Let me talk about fabric selection. Please look at chapter fabric requirements in your pattern book on page 1 and 2. You will find all the measurements for the houses, within the houses the windows, the walls, for the sky, the bridge, water, frame, and additional fabrics for the ornamental fabrics, decoration, fusible web, and freezer paper. You will find two options under the blues for the houses. Please ignore the blues, we are going to replace it with Christmassy fabric. Option 1 for those who want to buy new fabrics. Fat 8 will be sufficient. You really don't need fat quarters. And with fat 8 you will have enough fabric to make the dogtooth border. Option 2 is for you if you want to use small pieces of fabric from your stash. We give you the minimum size you will need for each piece. You can always cut it from a larger fabric. I encourage you to go through your stash as you really don't need big piece of fabrics to make the houses. Let me illustrate it on actual fabric. So if you decide to use your own fabric stash, you really don't need big pieces. Just 3 strips for a wall of one house and 3 windows are cut from another strip of fabric. As you can see from the roof templates, even the roof pieces don't need a lot of fabric. Here you can see a fat 8 bundles if you go for option 1. If it sounds confusing, please don't worry, I will illustrate it with the help of my fabric selection, or you can ask questions in the comment section or send me a message. Would you like to see my fabrics from close? I'm going to use my favorite Christmas colors: reds, green, white, little bit of gold swirly vines, and of course the skater fabric, which I bought last year. I mixed my fabrics from my stash, but I also bought new fabrics as some of my old Christmas fabric were not the right shade to go with the skater fabric. I also didn't have enough shiny fabric with gold, so I had to buy some extra. Let's look at each fabric group in detail. These are my 7 fabrics for the windows. In the pattern book we suggest 2 light, 2 medium, 1 pattern. I haven't really followed this suggestion as I wanted to keep it to the white color, and it's quite hard to go medium and dark with whites. Instead I used 3 pattern fabrics, and the medium is replaced by cream color with a subtle gold pattern. I think the most important is to keep in mind that when you arrange your houses, you can see that there is a good contrast between the windows of the adjacent houses and between the wall and the window of each house. Please use your design board to check if you have a good contrast between walls and windows and adjacent houses. Let's look at my wall fabrics. The instruction, based on the original monochrome blue color scheme, suggests a selection of dark and medium fabrics, about half dark and half medium. As I use 2 colors, red and green, I can get away with not having really dark fabrics. Most of my fabrics are medium weight, but I'm able to have different tones within the reds and also the greens. There is still enough contrast between the adjacent houses as I will alternate red, green, red, green, red, green. It's good to include pattern fabrics in your mix to give movements to your quilt. I have vines, tactile pattern, leaves, berries, Christmas tree and stars. Some of them are more subtle than the others, so then I can give some rest to the eye before moving on to the next shiny fabric. If you follow option 1 and you buy the recommended number of fat 8s, you will have enough fabrics for the dogtooth border. If you go for option 2 and you use small fabric pieces for your fabric stash, please follow the measurements and advice in the relevant paragraph. What about the sky fabrics? You'll also find 2 options here on page 2 under whites for the sky. Option 1, you can use 4 fat quarters of different patterned whites for your sky, and option 2 tells you what is the minimum size for the sky pieces you need to cut if you use your stash. In my quilt, I will replace the 4 fat quarter sky fabric with 1 snowflakes on blue sky fabrics. Under the sky fabric requirement paragraph, you will also find the measurements for the border, also for the dogtooth border. I will use a white fabric for my border and for the white part for the dogtooth border. I have not yet made up my mind whether I should include the leftovers from the white sparkly window fabric into my dogtooth borders or keep it only white. What do you think? Let's move on to the bridge fabrics. You will need 2 fabrics for the bridge, one for the upper part of the bridge and one for the lower part of the bridge. I will use a dark blue for the lower bridge and the pillars, and this white with the Christmas lights for the upper bridge. When I saw this fabric on the internet last year, I thought that, oh, that's perfect. It reminded me of a bridge which is decorated with Christmas lights and it's just covered with snow. As you can see, I'm not using a water fabric because I imagined frozen water with ice skaters. When I saw it on the internet, I knew it was perfect. It reminded me of the winters when we lived in the Netherlands. We were anxiously waiting for the cold weather when the canals would be frozen and the ice strong enough for ice skating. Have you heard of the Elfstedentocht, the 11 cities tour? It's an ice skating race on canals in Friesland in the north of the Netherlands. The route of the race goes through 11 towns and it's nearly 200 kilometers long. It only happened once during my 15 years in Netherlands, so I was very, very lucky to see it on television. And this is my frame for framing the central block. As I follow a completely different color palette than the original Delft blue, I will use this very old Christmas fabric, which I really like, and I have some sentimental feelings because I used it as a backing fabric, and I think it was also a border for an advent calendar which I made for my daughter when she was a child. So you can see it's really old. I thought that the mixed colors of this fabric would tie together the central panel. I wanted to have a frame which would work well with my sky, water, bridge, and of course my walls, houses. So what can you find under the additional section? Now this is the fun part, the decoration or embellishment for your quilt. You will need ornamental strips for your houses between the roofs and the basic houses. I will use some of the striking patterned shiny fabrics, which I also use as windows in my houses. I also have some other fabrics in my stash which I can use. But if you cannot find what you are looking for, just please let your creativity go free. You can have geometrical patterns, repeat border fabrics, ribbons, or embroider your own ornamental strips. For the decoration of the quilt, you can use laces or find fabrics which have Christmas trees or candles or Christmas wreaths, and then you can cut them out and fuse them onto your window or onto the door. I found these glass Christmas trees, bells, parcels. I'm going to sew it on the quilt. Of course, I'm going to wait until I quilted and finished the canal houses, and after that I'm going to sew them on. I also found a fairy light specially made for quilters, so you have longer wires between the fairy lights. If you cannot find what you are looking for, please feel free to improvise. You can draw your decoration onto the window with a special fabric marking pen, but please test it before using it. So let your creativity go free and wild and really have fun with decorating your quilt. And finally, at the end of your fabric requirement list, you will see instruction for fusible web and the freezer paper. You can use any type of fusible web, what you are familiar with. I have Steam Sim 2 here, or you can use Bonda web, whatever you know best or whatever it works best for you and you already had experience with it. But please make sure that you follow the instructions and directions of the manufacturer. We will talk about using fusible webs in details when we are going to work with the bridge and also making some of the roofs. You also need freezer paper for those roofs which require a freezer paper template for construction. I will show you this technique once we start to make those roofs. That's all about fabric requirements. What else you need? You need time and endless cup of tea or coffee and have fun making your quilt. I know you are really eager to start cutting your fabrics and sew, but please bear with me for another minute while we talk about the before you begin section on page 3 in the pattern book. Please read this page to save some fabrics and have a successful quilt. As I told you before, the key to success of this quilt is the contrast. Have a good contrast between house and windows, walls and windows, between adjacent houses, background and houses. Please save your leftover cut-off fabrics for your dogtooth border. Talking about printing, make sure that the test square is always 1 inch on each template page. If it is not 1 inch, please recalibrate your printer and check the size again, and if it is 1 inch, you have the correct size of your template. As to the fusible web, draw your bridge template first and use the rest of the fusible web for drawing the templates for the roofs. And last, watch these videos in the right order, the right sequence to have a successful quilt and enjoy your quilting.